Welcome back to the Elise Surkoff podcast, where we help women in perimenopause and menopause thrive unapologetically from the inside out. All right, buckle up, buttercups. I'm going to get super vulnerable. I'm going to get super personal, and I'm going to talk a little bit about something I haven't talked about ever on a public platform, which is my life, my high-low life, what it's like living with type 1 diabetes, with a child with type 1 diabetes. Now, my heart is pounding as I talk about this, and I hope I can keep it together because anytime I do, there's Rosie over there, but anytime I do talk about this, and I bring myself back into what it was like, it's hard to share it because I have to put myself back into the woman that I was 10 years ago. And this month, on November 30th, 2025, is our 10-year Diaversary. Oh, here I go. It's our 10-year Diaversary of living with type 1 diabetes. And I really wanted to share this, and what better way to share it than on this very big day for us. Why is this such a big day? We celebrate every year his Diaversary, the day that he was diagnosed. It's a tradition we did. The first year we did a big cookie cake. Owen gets a special present because he's the bravest human I know. All right. I can't believe it's been 10 years. And when I look back at the woman that I was 10 years ago, I was just so different in so many ways. But fuck, does this kid inspire me? I say that type 1 diabetes, I talk about it loosely. If you've been here a while, you'll know likely about my journey and my story about how, Owen's diagnosis was the catalyst for change for me. It catapulted me into a new identity, into my business, into learning. And I want to take you back to November 2015. Owen was 2. He was in daycare. He was in diapers. And Albert and I were in a challenging place in our marriage. But, we've been married now 20 years. At the time, we were married 10 years. And if you've been married 20 years, you have a lot of ups and downs and a lot of growth to do and a lot of marriages that you need to rebuild in that one marriage. And so that's what we were doing. We were in the middle of rebuilding marriage. And I knew something was wrong with my kid, but I didn't exactly figure it out until maybe like a week. So at the time, Owen started to pee through his diapers. So in the morning, he'd wake up at 5:30 every morning, and he'd be soaked, and I'd have to change his bed. And it sucked because at 5:30, now he's up, right? Like normally he'd sleep until 7 or 6:30, but at 5:30, now I'm up for the fucking day with my 2-year-old. And all my kids did this at one point when they were getting ready for potty training, or the diaper was too small. So that's the rule is hey, if your kid starts peeing through their diaper, it's probably either the diaper wasn't on properly, or they're peeing through it, or they're getting ready to potty train, meaning their kidneys are now learning hormonally how to hold in urine longer. And then they can't hold it anymore. So instead of peeing at small doses throughout the night, he pees all at once and it comes out all at once. And so you're going to leak. And so I kind of was like this for about a week or two, where it was just that kind of thing. And at this time, Albert and I decided to do a last minute getaway to Niagara Falls. And we left the kids with my parents. And I said to my mom, are you okay watching the kids for, I think, a night or 2 nights? We really needed to get away, the two of us. And so my mom's like, yeah, no problem. And at the time the kids were little, so they all slept at her house. And my mom had a crib and everything. And I said, all right, just like a heads up, make sure you get that diaper on really well. Because if you don't, he's going to wake up. He's been peeing through it. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes we tried double diapering it. And sure enough, he fucking went through that. He was such a happy kid. So that was it. That was the first sign, but it wasn't necessarily a sign. The other thing was he started to get skinnier. Now, Owen was not a chubby baby. Owen was born with he never had a belly like most babies. My other babies had bellies. He had quads, and even to this day at 12, he's ripped. Okay, he's just very muscular. So he just as a physique looked a little different than an average 2-year-old. But he started running around, and he started to get skinny. Now my other kid, Nate, my middle, also was pretty skinny as a toddler, and so I just thought, all right, Owen's just now like his brother. He's just kind of running around. As soon as your toddlers go from walking to running, they don't stop running, especially boys. They just fucking run all the time. So I remember saying to my mom, do you think he's too skinny? And she's like, no, he's running. Like, he's a crazy boy. Like, that's what they do. Fine. It was a Saturday morning, and it was Saturday, November 28th. It was a Saturday morning, and I was taking my daughter Leia to dance. And I took Owen too because Nate had hockey. Albert was taking Nate to hockey, and I was taking Leia to dance, and I took Owen with me, and I packed up the diaper bag, and I put his sippy cup of water down right by the diaper bag. And then about 5 minutes later, when I went to like go pack the diaper bag, meaning like put all my shit in the diaper bag, and I picked up the sippy cup, it was empty. And I thought, that's weird. I'm pretty sure that I filled this up, but like, I don't fucking know. Maybe, I'm not sure why I'd put a half empty sippy cup. Maybe he finished it. Went back to the kitchen, filled it up, put it back down, got distracted, probably went to get my phone, went to get like some snacks. I pick up the sippy cup again. It's empty. And I'm like, all right, I know I put that sippy cup down full. Owen had drank that entire fucking sippy cup in like 2 minutes. That's the flag that went off. That changed everything for me. I filled up the sippy cup. I threw him in the car, went to dance. At dance, I Googled, this was before chat, GPT. I Googled diabetes in children because this is me. I'm fucking really smart. I understand science. I understand diabetes, not type 1, but type 2. And I'm like drinking, peeing. I look up symptoms, childhood diabetes in children, in toddlers, and Owen has every single fucking sign. Peeing, losing weight, he's looking a little pale. And I'm like, okay, something isn't right. I call my mom immediately, and I'm like, hey, I don't know what to do, but I think that like something's wrong. And I want to take, I tell my mom and I are like fucking massive action takers. We're like, oh, you fucking like, we're going to call in all the forces. Like we know people. Anyway, so I'm like, I got to get shit done. So my mom's like, all right, let's take him to the walk-in clinic. Now my mom has a after-hours clinic right by her house. They are not answering the phone. Okay, this is like 11:15, 11 o'clock. My mom goes over to the clinic, and they're like, well, we close at 11:30. Now, I am at this dance class with my daughter until 11:30, and the clinic is about 20 minutes away. And my mom's like, you have to stay open. My daughter thinks her son has diabetes, and he's 2. I need you to stay open. And my mom is staying in this fucking clinic because she is like, there is no fucking way you're closing this clinic down. You're going to wait for my grandkid. Like literally, this is like, we're all mama bear here. So I like keep my composure. Leia's done. I'm like, we got to go. We got to go to the doctor. So I take Owen and Leia. The doctor waited, and doctor examines Owen, looks him up and down, checks his hands, his fingers, his toes. And he says to me word for word, this does not look like a child with diabetes. And I'm like, and he's like, I'm like, really? So like, we're good? And he goes, yep. If I thought he was in danger, I would send you to the hospital. And I was like, hospital? What? All right, cool. So I'm feeling good. And the doctor says, here's a urine test. Take this test, get a urine sample, but labs are closed right now. So you'll have to wait till Monday. And I was like, no problem. So I take this, it's a bag. If you've ever had to take labs for your kid, urine, it's like you have to put a bag over the penis. And so they pee into it. And then you take that and then you pour it into the container. And so I felt really good for about a minute. I was like, oh, okay, relief. Now, I had a kidney disease when I was 6. I had nephrotic syndrome. So my mind is going to like kidney. Cool. It's not diabetes. Does my kid have what I have? Is this a kidney thing? Because like something still is wrong. And so I then call the daycare that my kid's at, and they are the fucking most amazing people. And I say, hey, can you do me a favor and call me? I'm just like, I have questions. I'm just wondering, like, have you noticed Owen drinking a lot or, anything like unusual? Now, at the time, I started putting together, hey, I've been getting wet clothes being sent home with me every day that he's peeing through everything. And the daycare woman, Luz, shout out to Luz, said to me, you know what, Elise? Yes, he's drinking a lot. And he's peeing through everything. And oh my God, this doesn't sound good. And now I'm really worried. And she's freaking out. She is like almost in tears. She's like, please God, let this be nothing. And I'm like, all right, okay, thank you. Something's wrong. Something is wrong. And I do not feel good at all. And the next night, I was supposed to go to I was going to the Raptors game with my best friend, Laura. And I remember coming home and saying to Albert, all right, you know what? I'm taking him to the doctor Monday morning. I'm just going to the fucking doctor. I'm not even waiting. I'm going to the doctor Monday morning. And he looks at me and he's like, what the fuck? And I said, I know, it could be diabetes. It could be kidney, something. Something doesn't feel right to me. And he is like, he thought I was fucking crazy. And this was like the only and last time Albert and I ever argued about the health of our kid, because after this, he will never doubt me again. But he said, fine. If you think you need to take him to the doctor in the morning, meaning I'm going to miss work and he's going to miss daycare and all the and it's going to be an inconvenience because now he's got to take the other kids to school. He's like, if you think you need to do that, then do it. And I was like, don't you fucking ever question. Like, I know something is wrong. All right, next night, I go to the Raptors game and I know I'm taking Owen to the doctor the next morning and I'm supposed to see a friend for lunch. Shout out to Darcy. I call Darcy on the phone and I say, Darce, I have to cancel lunch. I'm really sorry. And I got to take Owen to the doctor. And she's like, I mean, really not a big deal, right? Like we all, she has 3 kids, same age as mine. She's like, hey, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know. I just get the sense something's wrong. He's been peeing a lot, peeing through his diapers. He's been drinking a lot. I took him to a clinic. Doctor said it's not diabetes, but like, I didn't actually say the diabetes word. I just said, I want my doctor to see him. And she said to me, did you test his urine? She goes, do you have his pee in your fridge by chance? And I said, actually, I do, because I'm waiting to take it to the lab. This was at the Raptors game. It's 9:00 at night. She goes, bring it to me. I'm going to fucking test it. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I could go home. Laura drops me off at home. I tell Albert, I'm taking Owen's pee to Darcy's to test it. He's like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, bye. And I take my pee of Owen's container and I drive it to Darcy's house. And Darcy's waiting with her glucose test in her container that she had. And she dips it in and it goes to the darkest color immediately. So there is like 6 or 7 different shades of glucose. If there's traces of glucose in the urine, and it was the darkest brown. We tested it 3 times. And I don't even know what this means. I don't know what it says. And Darcy just takes over. And she's like, I'm going to call my cousin, who is an endo at Sick Kids. Sick Kids, we're in Toronto. Sick Kids is best hospital, children's hospital in the world. And she goes, I'm going to call him. It's diabetes. I'm like, no, it can't be diabetes. This doctor just told me it's not diabetes. And she's like, it's diabetes. She's like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. My cousin's at Sick Kids. He's going to take care of you. You're going to learn diabetes. You're going to be in diabetes daycare. They're going to teach you all. You're going to carb count like a fucking mofo. And we're going to figure this out and it's going to be fine. And I'm like, Darce, I don't understand. Like, what? And keep in mind, I'm standing there holding this fucking strip in my hand. And I call my cousin's wife. Shout out to Justine. She's a doctor at a hospital in Peds. And I call Justine and I say, I'm sorry for this very random call. And she's like, no problem. What is it? And I said, I just tested Owen's urine for glucose and it's this color. I think I FaceTimed her. I don't even remember. And I said, could it be something else? And she said, no, it's diabetes. And I said, but just I had a kidney disease when I was a kid. And she's like, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but if there's glucose in the urine, it's diabetes. It's nothing else. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? And she said, well, you're the mom. Do you think he's in danger? And I said, well, what do you mean? And she goes, does his breath smell sweet and fruity? Do you feel like he's got breathing problems? I'm like, no, he's sleeping. So she said, okay, you know him best. Go to Sick Kids for 7 a.m. That's when they switch shifts. You'll be seen the fastest. If I felt that you felt he was in danger, I'd say take him to the hospital right now, but let's let him sleep and take him first thing in the morning. Darcy calls her cousin. He's at Sick Kids. He's like, it's diabetes. If there's glucose in the urine. So I go home. with a little baggie full of 3 strips of tested glucose, because Darcy's like, take this to the hospital and show them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take this. I'm going to go in there and mama bear triage and be like, my kid's got diabetes, right? And I call, I don't even remember. I don't even remember if I had a fucking cell phone with me. I don't remember, but I must have called Albert at some point and I said, it's diabetes. Justine told me, Darcy's cousin told me, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to take him to Sick Kids at 7 a.m. So we're going to leave. I'm going to drive him at 6:30 in the morning. You're going to take the other 2 kids to school, and then you're going to subway downtown and meet me at Sick Kids. This is the plan. I will bring Owen's breakfast. He'll have it when he gets there. I've already packed a lunch because Albert did that because he's going to daycare. So like I'm taking all his food and I pack his diaper bag with extra clothes because he's peeing through everything. And I call my parents immediately. And my parents, being as educated as they are and having gone through kidney disease with me, are like, well, people can be wrong. Doctors can be wrong. Maybe it's kidney. And I'm like, I know it's diabetes. So I just I go numb. I think this was the first time in my life that I really just went numb. And I was like, okay, well, we'll find out. And that night, Albert and I laid beside each other like corpses in a coffin, just like not able to move. And I'll never forget that night because I was waiting for 6:30 so I could go to Sick Kids. And I put Owen in the car, my happy little baby. And I go into Sick Kids and I go into triage and they're like, what's up? And I'm like, I think my kid has diabetes. And I show them the fucking glucose sticks as if they're not going to test. And actually, I didn't say diabetes. I said, this is my son's blood sugar and I'm really concerned. And they whip us in. I mean, if you have any suspicion of diabetes with a 2-year-old, you're fucking front of the line. And they immediately put a bag on him to test his urine. They poke his finger. His blood sugar is 40. Normal blood sugar, now these are Canadian values, is 3.3 to 5.5. He was 40. And the nurse looks at me and her heart breaks for me because she knows that I know what this is. And I said to her, what do you think it is? And she said, it's exactly what you think it is. And I said, okay. And she said, just wait in that room. We were testing his urine. They were waiting to see if he was in DKA, diabetic ketone acidosis, which is where most kids come into the hospital, vomiting, flu. They think it's the flu. It's diabetes. We hadn't gotten there yet because I had caught it. And so we're now in another hospital room, just like waiting for the urine to collect so they can test it. And volunteers come in with stickers. And at this point, I've called Albert. I've called my parents. I'm like, it's diabetes. I'm telling you, like, we're just waiting. I'm sending pictures. I've got pictures of it. I'm trying not to die inside. I'm trying to stay strong. Owen's so fucking happy. He's got stickers. He's hungry as fuck. This kid is eating everything and anything. It's now maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's eaten breakfast and lunch and all his snacks. He's so fucking hungry. I can't feed this kid enough. And by the time Albert gets to the hospital, I think Albert got to the hospital around, I can't remember what time. I want to say like 11, but I don't think so because he had to drive the kids to school, come back home, and then drop the car off, and then he was going to subway down so we'd have one car and not two like at Sick Kids. So it took him a while to get there. By the time Albert got to the hospital to meet me, I already had 3 endocrinologists meet with me one-on-one and tell me that Owen has diabetes. And the reason why was because they were expecting me not to understand that. They were like, it is type 1 diabetes. And I was like, yeah, no. They're like, he's going to be fine. I had another endo come in and say, hey, I just want to let you know that your son's just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I'm like, I know. He's like, and this woman was so nice. She's like, just so you know, my husband has type 1 diabetes and he's really healthy. And we've got 3 healthy, beautiful children. Your son's going to be okay. And I was like, I know. And then I had another one who then became our doctor, who was Darcy's cousin, who was like, hey, Owen has type 1 diabetes. And I'm like, I know. And Albert was in the room now. And it was like, what's the plan? The plan was to go to diabetes daycare, where we would have nurses tell us exactly how to manage insulin and give injections. And I looked at the doctor. Doctor's like, he's going to be fine. We're going to teach this to you. Doctor said, hey, are you going away for the holidays? And I look at Albert and I'm like, oh my God, we do. We have a plan to Mexico. And he goes, great. Don't cancel your plan. It was in 3 weeks. He's like, we'll make sure that you're ready to go to Mexico. You're going to go to Mexico. And I was like, all right, we're going to go to Mexico with fucking diabetes. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I said to the doctor, hey, when am I going to feel normal? When will this feel normal? And he smiled and he said, about a year. And I said, okay. And so at that moment, Albert and I went to the diabetes daycare. Now, Owen did not have to sleep over because he was not in DKA. So for the next 2 days, we spent in a room that we brought a crib into the next room so Owen could nap, which he peed through everything. He had to go home in a hospital gown because he had no more clothes that fit him. Owen had his first injection of insulin at 11 a.m. that day by a nurse. The next morning, I brought him back, starving. We gave him breakfast at the hospital, and I gave him his first injection of insulin myself. And that was the first time that I gave a needle to my kid, my 2-year-old. That first day, I remember my mom was like, you got to tell your brothers. You can tell your brothers, like, this is a big deal. And so I remember actually telling my boss at the time, I said, hey, listen, I'm at the hospital. Owen was just diagnosed with diabetes. I don't think I'm going to make the meeting today. It was just like, and my boss was like, you do what you need to do. We'll talk next week. And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember texting my brothers and I said, hey guys, just some really unfortunate news here, but I'm at Sick Kids. Everything is fine, but Owen's just being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And that was also a really hard thing to say because now I'm like saying it. Like, we have a diagnosis. 48 hours ago, I was told that my baby was not looking like a child with diabetes. So you can imagine the confusion and frustration, but I knew something was wrong. That night, I went home with a book that is like how to care for your child with diabetes. And I read that book cover to cover while on the Stairmaster. Thank you very much. And I came back the next morning with bookmarks. And it was like, hey, when your kid is sick, you need more insulin. When you have this. Anyways, Owen developed a fever 3 days later, not from this, just because he's a 2-year-old. And we had to go into how do we manage sickness with diabetes? So when I say the learning curve was high, but like I also said, I was numb. I was numb for the first 3 months. Now, we did go to Mexico. We did take injections and we did manage it. We took him home that second night after being in diabetes daycare for 2 days, learning fast acting, slow acting, rapid acting insulin. We had to learn how to carb count pretty fucking quickly. It would be so great to have chat by my side at that point, but we didn't. There was no tech at this point, so it was just injections. And we would test his glucose every 4 hours overnight. I had to go and teach the daycare how to do it because, hey, all they had to do was poke his blood sugar, like poke his finger, and just oh my God, we recorded it in a log for the first like year and a half. We recorded everything in a logbook, and met with the dietitian to understand nutrition, which like I had a hard time doing because I fucking know nutrition, and that was a really big ego fucking slam for me. And I remember I have a picture of Owen 3 weeks after diagnosis. He got fat. So, and it really was diabetes. We went through the honeymoon phase. Now, the honeymoon phase is when the last of the beta cells that are not attacked yet from the pancreas, because it is an autoimmune disease, the beta cells, whatever's left, will wake up and start functioning. And so whatever insulin function is remaining will happen. And so because Owen was 2, he honeymooned for 3 weeks. For someone older, they can honeymoon for like 6 months and it feels like you don't need insulin and you don't have diabetes. And they warned us about this, but it didn't last very long. Owen's first low happened in the evening. I got in, like, didn't understand how to get into the crib and fucking give him a chocolate milk. And again, he was smiling, but I didn't know what the fuck to do. I remember thinking, we got to move this kid to a bed because like, I don't know how to treat him in his crib. Running around the house, trying to capture him to give him injections was really hard and heartbreaking. the amount of breakdowns I had. I stopped counting. Eating was really hard. I remember hiding in the pantry because I was eating chips. Shocking. I love chips. And thinking I had so much guilt that I could eat chips when my baby had to think about the food he ate and plan accordingly first. And there was so much guilt there. And it was hard on my other kids because I said my baby that had the least amount of my attention, being my third, now has to have 100% of my attention. And I had to tell my other kids that when I'm doing insulin, you cannot talk to me because, of course, me being me asks these questions. When am I going to feel normal? And they're like, hey, listen, if this or this, go to the hospital. And I said, all right, what's the worst case scenario here? Like, how is my kid going to die? That's what I want to know. And the nurse said, wow, okay, great question, but human error. You give too much insulin, human error. And I said, all right, how does that happen? And she's like, well, you can mix up fast acting, long acting. Of course, this was like injections. And you can double up by accident. You can give too much insulin. So if that ever happens, straight to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. So I need to have full attention, phone down, no other kids. Mom needs full attention. Cool. For the first 3 months, I didn't breathe. How do I know this? Because I went for a massage. 3 months later, I was training for a 30K race. And my massage therapist at the time was like, oh, God, like you're not breathing. And she always said to me, girl, you better fucking like calm your stress. Like, I don't think she knew what was happening with me, but she's like, you got to stop training and like start breathing and like go take a sauna. And I didn't. And so she didn't say this at the time to me, but she's like, you're going to probably have a harsh reaction to this massage treatment. And I had to come back 3 days later because my ribcage was not moving because I wasn't breathing. And as soon as I left the treatment, the massage treatment, I started crying. And it was the only time in my life that I felt like I couldn't get out of bed in the morning because I couldn't stop crying. I just couldn't stop crying. For 3 days, I could not stop crying. And I went back to the massage and she's like, how were you? And I said, I don't know what the fuck you did, but I couldn't stop crying. And she's like, well, I warned you something was going to happen. She's like, you were holding it all in. That was literally me being numb for 3 months. And that was the first time I realized this could kill me if I don't fucking change my habits, my behaviors, and prioritize myself. So that was the very first 3 months. The first year of diabetes was highs and lows like you wouldn't believe. The amount of lows, the amount of highs was so fucking hard. We were chasing our tails. We didn't know what we were doing. I joined forces with other moms of children with type 1, and we raised $70K for the JDRF. I laugh because doesn't that just sound like me? Not only am I going to fucking master this, I'm going to raise money for other kids. I became a JDRF mentor for other newly diagnosed young families. So for the next 5 years, whenever there was a child under the age of 5 that was diagnosed, I got the phone call and I got to mentor them. And shout out if you were one of my mentees. We probably still talk to this day. And I researched everything. I eat, sleep, and breathe diabetes as most people would. And Albert did the same thing. I don't want to like negate or nullify his journey here. He did the same thing in his own ways. He went deep into the research. He's like, we're going to fucking find a cure. We're going to figure out the research, blah, blah, blah. And he's still like that. God bless him. Albert is more relaxed and I am more psycho. And so together we balance out. I always want to go aggressive with insulin and he wants to go conservative when we end up giving the right amount. All right, let's go into the next 10 years. Year 1 was fucking hard, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So at the time, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. When Owen was 3, I actually can't remember, maybe 3, 4, we started using the Dexcom. The Dexcom was not in Canada yet. The Libre was just announced, and it was only available in the UK, and it was not approved for kids yet. So it wasn't approved yet for peds, but it was for adults in Canada, and we were going to switch to it. And our nurse advised us against it because she's like, all the support will be in the UK, which means when you have a problem, you're going to have to like wait for the UK team to help you. And so as soon as the Dexcom came to Canada, which wasn't long after, we put Owen on immediately. Owen was one of the first kids at Sick Kids with the Dexcom. Our doctor had no idea what the Dexcom was. 18 months after using the Dexcom, which is a continuous glucose monitor, 18 months after, my doctor at the hospital said, hey, I realize we let you go on this device. We never taught you how to use it. Let us teach you how to use it. And I said, I think you want me to teach you how to use it. This was the first time Albert and I realized that like we were in control of our child's diabetes more so than our team at the hospital. And I don't want to like slam sick kids or anything, but they are very conservative. And so they're last to go on to any tech. By age 4, we started pumping. Needles were just not effective in the sense that needles are great. We give insulin. Our son survives with insulin, thank God for that. But pumping was just next level. It wasn't just the lack of needles that was going to help us. It was the fact that we could manage in a different way. So we could actually control basals at different rate. We can control carb ratios at different times. So he's more insulin resistant in the morning. We can make his levels higher. We can have basals change overnight. There's just like it's next level in lingeing, except it's a 3-month relearning curve. So 2 years later, we relearned diabetes and we started pumping with the Omnipod, which is a tubeless pump. It was brand new, really redesigned at the time. And we just thought, hey, if it was me, I wouldn't want to be stuck to tubing. And so we went to the Omnipod for that reason. And we've only used the Omnipod since. Doesn't come without its problems, but we had to learn so much it was fucking hard. I remember thinking like, oh my God, I just got used to this fucking thing and now I got to get used to pumping. But it did really help. I also had to teach Owen as he was transitioning into school, into kindergarten, his teachers and his classmates, what was diabetes? First kid at the school with diabetes. Had to pave the way with a very, very understanding and helpful principal to create safety guidelines. And I remember speaking to all the teachers. It was a very small school, and I love this school. So shout out if you're one of the teachers at the school. And I remember one of the teachers said, we're going to keep him safe. So just tell us what we need to do. Because I was like, well, I mean, look, if there's a fire alarm or if there's like, Owen broke all of the rules, right? It was like, you're not allowed to leave the room if you have to pee. Owen had to leave the room. Owen had to do everything that, no food. Owen needed food. And the teachers were just like, we're going to keep him safe. And I was like, all right, here's when you would call 911. Here's when you would call me. And I ended up leaving my job at the time. It got packaged out. I'm not ashamed to admit that, but I ended up like not finding a full-time job because I needed to manage Owen full-time. That was my life. We qualified for nursing in the school. So we had nurses that visited the school for Owen 3 times a day, in the morning snack, lunch, and afternoon. And we had that up until about grade 4. Or no, that's not true. I think we had that up until about COVID. The nurses were great until they weren't. But I managed all the nursing team at the school. It was exhausting. It killed me. And Albert at the time was at a job that every like beginning of the school year, he would have to travel to like Europe for like a conference. And I had a full out breakdown because I was like trying to keep him safe at school, trying to deal with these nurses. And I was like, the healthcare system was so broken. And I was like, I can't do this. I remember calling him on the phone. He's in London. And I'm like, I need help. Like, I can't do this. And he said, okay, I'm going to take over the nurses. I will talk to them. I wasn't allowed to talk to the nurses because the amount of like communication breakdown, it was just like, it became destructive to Owen. Owen became upset. And I was just like, this is killing my kid. It's killing me. I didn't know what to do. It was like to homeschool him. It was just awful. Now we had so much support at school, thank God. And it certainly made things easier, but Albert did take that over from me. And it was about a year later that I went away for the first time with a couple of friends of mine to Nashville. And this is where I say my music died. And I did a blog about this called My High Low Life. Go ahead and look it up. But I found my music again. This is when the first part of me began to rebloom because there was a big part of me that was dead. And I needed to just slough off that layer and rebuild. But I went to Nashville and I had not left Owen. It was 2 years later. So I guess Owen was 4 around the same time. And Albert had never changed a pump. He had never changed a Dexcom. I had done everything at the time. I was the primary care for Owen. And I had to like teach him how to do this. And my friend said, you have to teach him how to do this, Elise. You cannot master everything. What if something happens to you? And then I had the fear of what if something happens to me? What if something happens to me and Albert? So I had to have the talk with my parents. If something happens to me and Albert, this is how you take care of Owen. Here's the number to sick kids. Here's the number to our nurse. Call the nurse. She will take over from there. She'll teach you what to do. The nurse told us that. Give your parents my number. You know how hard it is to go to your parents and say, hey, mom and dad, if I and my husband tragically die, I need you to call sick kids and learn how to manage my son's diabetes. That's a conversation no one should have to have with their parents. But that's the conversation I had. It was a quick one. It was understood. And now we move on. And so I taught Albert how to do all the management. I went to Nashville. I slept for 10 hours. I put my head down and I did not wake up for 10 hours because at this point I had not slept through the night. And guess what? Still don't really sleep through the night, although it's a lot better now that we're looping. This is getting a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I didn't realize I would get so emotional. So I am going to split this, I think, into 2 parts because I think the next part is super important, which is like the transformation that I had to do and all the amazing things that's happened since. But I really want to take you through what it was like to be a parent living with this disease. And, Owen starting hockey at the age of 5, being on the ice. And it was like, how am I going to manage fucking hockey? And how am I going to manage sleepover camp? Owen can't go to sleepover camp. And what's going to, like, my kid can't sleep out. And how is he going to go to a birthday party? How do we do this? It was so fucking hard. And the only way I can really, when I think about it, is that Albert and I had just rebuilt our marriage, like I said at the beginning. It was because of this. Albert and I were just like, we're going to fucking do this. We were such a team. We still are a team. Where I was black, he was white. Where I was day, he was night. If there were nights that I couldn't get up, I would throw, and I still do to this day, where I'm like, babe, yeah, can you poke him? Like, I just fell back to sleep. I can't do it again. And he's like, yeah, I got it. We're such a team. We made the decision that our son would never have to be a victim of this ever. And we would teach him to rise up from it. We never allowed, he hated it. What kid wants to be fucking chased by needles? You know how many people say to me, oh, my kid, I could never give my kid a needle. And you know what I say to them? I look at them dead in the eye and I said, the fuck you wouldn't. You would. Because if your kid would die without it, you'd be injecting a needle faster than you can believe. So yeah, you would give your kid a needle. Not things we want to do, but it was fucking hard. It is predictably unpredictable. And it is, how am I going to keep my kids safe in the world? How am I going to let them go out in the world? There was one time we couldn't be at hockey. My dad took Owen to hockey. And I said, Dad, if his blood sugar goes low, I'll tell you, because I'm watching Owen. I got an Apple Watch now. I'm watching his sugars. And I called my dad. I said, Dad, Owen's going low. You're going to have to go get him something. My dad opens the fucking door to the ice and he runs on and gives Owen, juice on the fucking ice. And I'm like, Dad, all you had to do was wave him. And my dad's like, I didn't know. I just he's low. I gotta get him juice. I mean, this is what we're dealing with here, right? It is everybody is now involved in this big life-changing event. All right. I'm going to leave this here so that I can compose myself. And I'm going to come back with part 2 on this. And in part 2, I'm going to talk about what it was like for the next 5-6 years up into today. What it was like because we started looping Owen with a do-it-yourself device that's not approved to this day by Health Canada. What that was like, why we switched teams at the hospital, and what it's like today with a 12-year-old, very athletic, highly competitive type 1 diabetic dude is what we say. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that I didn't bore you. And I will continue on the next one. Now, if you have listened to this and you've resonated with this, please just show me some love. Screenshot this. Hey, Elise, thank you for sharing. It will really, really make me feel less, or I should say more comfortable being vulnerable. So thanks for listening. And I will definitely catch you on part 2 on the next one.